Look, I have been doing this job for 17 cycles now, and I have seen things that would make your sensory organs curl up and die. I have eliminated targets on ice worlds where the wind could flay your exoskeleton clean off. I have operated in methane swamps where one wrong step meant dissolving into organic soup. I have even survived a contract on Voltrax 7 where the local predators hunt in packs and consider anything with a pulse to be a light snack. But nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, prepared me for humans. You have heard the rumors, right? Everyone has. The species from Earth. That ridiculous little Deathworld spinning out in the unfashionable arm of the galaxy. The planet where everything, and I do mean everything, is actively trying to kill you. The water falls from the sky in frozen chunks. The ground splits open and spews liquid rock. The local wildlife includes creatures with enough venom to drop a Craxian battlecruiser. And the microorganisms? Oh, do not even get me started on those microscopic nightmares. And somehow, the humans just live there. They thrive there. They call it home, with genuine affection in their voices. The galaxy thought they were a joke. We were so wrong. The contract came through on a Tuesday, which should have been my first warning sign. Nothing good ever happens on Tuesday. The file landed in my neural implant with the usual ping, and I pulled up the details while sipping my morning nutrient solution. Target: Iris Bellamy. Human. Female. Age 28 standard years. Occupation: xenobiologist working at the Frontier Research Station on Kepler 4. The briefing was simple enough. She had witnessed something she should not have. Some corporate espionage nonsense that my employers wanted buried. Eliminate the witness, collect payment, move on to the next job. Standard procedure. I had done this 347 times before. The dossier included a hollow image. She looked ordinary. Brown hair pulled back in what humans call a ponytail. Dark eyes behind protective eyewear. A smile that suggested she found something amusing about her own identification photo. Average height for a human, which meant she was absurdly tall by galactic standards. The file noted she had been off-world for 6 months, studying silicon-based life forms in the Kepler system. No combat training, no military background, no cybernetic enhancements, just a scientist who had been in the wrong place at the wrong time. Easy job, I thought. In and out. Probably be done before lunch. You see where this is going, right? You can feel the impending disaster radiating off this story like heat from a dying star. I took the job. I prepped my gear, loaded my plasma disruptor, the one that had dropped a Thanarian warlord in his own throne room, and caught a transport to the research station. Security was laughable. These science outposts always are. They are more worried about containment breaches than actual intruders. I found her in Lab 7. Alone, working at some kind of analysis terminal. The room smelled weird, like chemicals and something organic I could not quite place. She had her back to the door, completely unaware of my presence. Perfect. I raised my weapon, the charging coil humming with lethal intent, and cleared my throat to get her attention. Professional courtesy, you understand. I am an assassin, not a monster. That is when everything went sideways. She turned around, saw me, saw the weapon pointed directly at her center mass, and do you know what she did? She sighed. Not a gasp of terror, not a scream, not even a sharp intake of breath that would indicate, oh, I do not know, a healthy survival instinct. No, she sighed like I had just told her the cafeteria was out of her favorite lunch option. Then, and I am not making this up, I swear on my ancestral spawning pools, then she reached up and adjusted her hair. The elastic band holding her ponytail had apparently slipped down a few centimeters, which was clearly the most pressing concern in her current situation. Not the trained killer, not the weapon that could vaporize her internal organs. The hair thing. She fixed it with the casual efficiency of someone who had done this 10,000 times before, tucking a loose strand behind her ear, making sure everything was neat and proper. I just stood there, weapon still raised, watching this absolute lunacy unfold. Finally she looked at me again, made direct eye contact and said, in the most bored tone I have ever heard, "You done?" I blinked, all 3 of my eyes in sequence because my brain needed a hard reset. "Excuse me," I managed to say. "Are you done?" She repeated, enunciating each word like she was talking to a particularly slow child. With the whole menacing stance thing. Because I have samples in the centrifuge that need checking in about 4 minutes, and I would really prefer not to have to restart the entire sequence. My weapon was still pointed at her. The charge indicator was glowing bright orange, indicating it was fully ready to fire. One squeeze of the trigger, One tiny contraction of my primary manipulator digit, and she would cease to exist. She was looking at me like I was the one being unreasonable. I am here to kill you, I said, because apparently we needed to clarify the obvious. Right. Yeah, I figured, she said, waving one hand dismissively. The gun kinda gave it away. Very dramatic entrance, by the way. The throat clearing was a nice touch. Very theatrical. But seriously, the samples? This was not how this was supposed to go. In my 347 previous contracts, exactly 0 targets had responded to imminent death with concerns about laboratory procedures. There was a protocol to these things. A natural order. I threaten, they panic, I eliminate, I leave. Simple. Clean. Efficient. This human was breaking all the rules, and she did not even seem to notice. You are not afraid, I stated, still trying to process what was happening. She tilted her head, considering. Should you be afraid? I repeated, my voice climbing into a register I did not know I possessed. I am pointing a military-grade plasma disruptor at you. This weapon has ended warlords, toppled governments, and once accidentally destroyed a small moon. Yes, you should absolutely be afraid. She made a face, scrunching up her nose like she had just smelled something unpleasant. Okay, first of all, that moon thing sounds like a lawsuit waiting to happen. Second, is that a plasma disruptor? These are a Arathan model, right? The 700 series. How did she know that? Yes, but that is hardly relevant to your current situation, which, let me remind you, involves your imminent death. Right. Totally relevant actually, she said, holding up one finger. See, plasma disruptors work by superheating the target's cellular structure, causing catastrophic molecular breakdown. Great against most species, absolutely devastating to anything with a silicon base or crystalline structure. But humans. She made a so-so gesture with her hand. Not so much. Not so much. I was going to need therapy after this conversation. Extensive therapy. We are mostly water, she explained, like she was teaching a basic science class. About 60% give or take. And water has this really high specific heat capacity, which means it takes a ton of energy to actually change its temperature. Your weapon there would need to pump out about 30% more power than its maximum output to actually do significant damage to me. You would probably give me a nasty sunburn, maybe some second-degree burns on the surface, but nothing fatal. I checked my weapon's display. She was right. The technical specifications confirmed it. How did a xenobiologist know the exact thermal tolerances of my equipment? Plus, she continued, apparently not done with her lecture, humans have this fun thing called an autonomic nervous system. Even if you manage to cause serious damage, my body would immediately flood the area with white blood cells, start clotting factors, release adrenaline, and basically go into full combat mode without me having to think about it. We evolved on a planet that has been trying to murder us since before we crawled out of the oceans. That is not possible, I said weakly. Oh, buddy, you have no idea. She leaned back against her workstation, completely relaxed. Back on Earth we have spiders whose venom can cause your flesh to rot off. We have jellyfish that can stop your heart with a single touch. We have weather patterns that can rip buildings apart. There are places on my planet where the air itself is toxic, where the water can boil you alive, where the ground will literally swallow you whole. And that is just a regular Tuesday.
You live there voluntarily?
Born and raised in Colorado, she said with what I can only describe as pride. You know what Colorado has. Bears, mountain lions, rattlesnakes, altitude sickness, flash floods, forest fires, avalanches, and tourists, which are somehow worse than all of those combined. My weapon suddenly felt very heavy in my grip. So you pointing that little plasma toy at me? She smiled, and it was not a nice smile. It was the smile of someone who had looked death in the face so many times that they were on a first-name basis. Yeah, I am not really sweating it. You do not believe me, she said, reading my expression, which to be fair was probably somewhere between horrified and deeply skeptical. Okay, hang on. Let me show you something. She walked right past me, past the weapon still trained on her, and opened a small refrigeration unit. I tracked her with the disruptor, but honestly the whole exercise was starting to feel pointless. She rummaged around for a moment and pulled out a clear container filled with amber liquid. This is my lunch, she announced, holding it up. Orange juice. Fresh squeezed this morning. Want to know what the pH level is? I do not care about your beverage preferences. Around 3.5, she continued, ignoring me completely. that is acidic enough to corrode certain metals given enough time, and I am about to drink it. For fun, she unscrewed the cap and took a long sip, maintaining eye contact the entire time. Refreshing. My stomach acid, by the way, is around pH 1.5 to 3.5. That is strong enough to dissolve bone. We just carry that around inside us, all the time. She set down the juice and picked up a small brown bag. Oh, and these are almonds. Contain cyanide. Not a lot, but enough that most species would need medical intervention after eating a handful. Humans? We just call them a healthy snack. She popped 3 into her mouth and crunched down. Want one? I very much do not want one. Your loss, she said, chewing thoughtfully. Oh, here is a fun one. She grabbed her water bottle and took a drink. This station keeps the water oxygenated at standard galactic levels, which is about 15% higher than Earth normal. You know what happens when humans do not get enough oxygen. We just adapt. We grow more red blood cells. Our bodies literally change themselves to compensate. Takes a few weeks, kind of uncomfortable, but we do it. Meanwhile, you stick of relics in low oxygen and they just die. This is insane. This is biology, she corrected. Want to see something really fun? Before I could answer, she slapped her own arm hard. The crack echoed through the lab. What are you doing? Checking my circulation, she said casually, even as a red mark bloomed across her skin. See, our blood vessels are super close to the surface in some places. Makes us easy to bruise. But watch this. She held out her arm, and I watched in mounting horror as the red mark slowly faded over the next 30 seconds. Healing factor. Not fast enough to handle major trauma instantly, but give us a few hours, and we can bounce back from injuries that would permanently disable most species. The door to the lab hissed open and 2 more humans walked in. I spun, weapon raised, prepared for a fight. Oh hey, Iris, one of them said. A male with dark skin and closely cropped hair. He looked at me, looked at the weapon, looked back at Iris. You good? Yeah, Marcus, I am fine, just explaining human physiology to... Sorry, I did not catch your name. Vexor. I said automatically. Right, explaining stuff to Vexor here. He is having a bit of a moment. The other human, a female with bright red hair and more freckles than I could count, squinted at my weapon. Is that a Zarathon 700? Those things are garbage against organic targets. My dad has one, uses it to heat his coffee. That is what I said, Iris agreed. You people use military-grade weapons to heat beverages. My voice cracked. I mean, it was just sitting in the garage, the red-haired human said with a shrug. Seems wasteful not to use it for something. Marcus walked over to a different workstation, completely unbothered by my presence. Anyone want lunch? I brought sandwiches. They have peppers in them. What kind of peppers? Iris asked. Ghost peppers. Oh, nice. Yeah, I will take one. Ghost peppers have a Scoville rating that would require hospitalization for most species, I said numbly. Right, Marcus grinned. They are great, really clear out the sinuses. I lowered my weapon, not because I chose to, but because my arms were tired, and also because I was having what I believe humans would call an existential crisis. Iris seemed to sense that I was teetering on the edge of a complete psychological breakdown, because she pulled up a chair and gestured for me to sit. I did, mostly because my leg segments were no longer reliably supporting my weight. Okay, so here is the thing about Earth, she began, and I got the distinct impression I was about to receive an education I never wanted. Most planets in the habitable zone are pretty chill, right? Stable climates, predictable weather patterns, maybe 1 or 2 apex predators that are not too hard to avoid. Earth is not like that. Earth is what happens when a planet decides that everything living on it needs to earn the right to survive on a daily basis. Marcus sat down with his sandwich, which smelled like it was actively emitting some kind of chemical weapon. She is not exaggerating. My hometown gets hurricanes. You know what those are. Spinning columns of air and water that can destroy entire cities. They happen every year, multiple times. We just rebuild and wait for the next one. My region has tornadoes, the red-haired human added. Her name tag said Quinn. Tornadoes are like hurricanes' angrier cousins. They pick up houses and throw them around like toys. We have a whole season for them. Tornado season. We put it on calendar. And earthquakes, Iris continued. The ground just randomly decides to shake itself apart. Buildings collapse. Roads split open. Entire landscapes change shape. Could happen anytime, any place. No warning. Volcanoes, Marcus added between bites of his apparently weaponized sandwich. Oh yeah, Volcanoes, Iris nodded enthusiastically. Mountains that explode. They bury entire cities in ash or lava. The eruption in 1815 changed global weather patterns for years, caused widespread famine, and we just live near them anyway. Some of the most populated areas on Earth are right next to active volcanoes. I tried to process this. Why? The soil is really fertile, Quinn said. Like this was obvious. You risk death by liquid rock for good farming? I mean, you say it like that and it sounds weird, Marcus said. Iris pulled up a holographic display from her workstation. Images of Earth appeared, and I immediately understood why the galactic community had classified it as a Class 12 Deathworld. Okay, so let us talk about the wildlife. Australia, that is a continent on Earth, has 21 of the 25 most venomous snakes in the known galaxy. It also has spiders the size of dinner plates, jellyfish that can kill you in minutes, octopi that carry enough venom to kill 26 humans, and birds that can literally disembowel you with their claws. People live there? I asked weakly. About 25 million of us, yeah. Nice beaches. Africa has lions, elephants, hippos, and crocodiles, Marcus continued. Hippos kill more people per year than almost any other large animal. They are extremely territorial, have teeth the size of your arm, and can run faster than humans despite weighing about 3,000 kilograms. And crocodiles? They have been around for about 200 million years, basically unchanged, because they are already perfect killing machines. South America has the Amazon rainforest, Quinn added. That place has poison dart frogs, anacondas that can swallow prey whole, piranhas, caimans, jaguars, bullet ants whose sting feels like being shot, and about 2.5 million insect species, most of which can hurt you in creative ways. And that is just the large obvious stuff, Iris said. We have not even touched on the microscopic threats. Bacteria, viruses, parasites, prions. Earth has diseases that can liquefy your organs, shut down your immune system, cause your brain to eat itself, or make you allergic to sunlight. We have parasites that burrow into your eyes. We have amoebas that swim up your nose and consume your brain tissue. Please stop talking, I begged. And the weather, she continued mercilessly. Temperatures on Earth range from -89 degrees Celsius to 56.7 degrees Celsius. That is a swing of almost 150 degrees. Most planets have a range of maybe 20 degrees. We have deserts where the heat will kill you in hours, and polar regions where you will freeze solid in minutes. And somehow, humans live in both places. Why? It was the only question I could manage. Why would you stay on such a planet? The three humans looked at each other, and Marcus shrugged. It is home. Plus, once you grow up dodging natural disasters and lethal wildlife, everywhere else feels kind of boring. Boring, I repeated flatly. Yeah, Iris said. I have been on Kepler for 6 months, and honestly, I miss the excitement. This place is too safe, too predictable. Nothing ever tries to kill me here. I am literally trying to kill you right now. Yeah, but you are not very good at it. No offense. Pride is a dangerous thing. It makes you do stupid things, like doubling down on a clearly failed assassination attempt because you cannot accept that your entire career has been built on targeting species that are apparently made of something other than weaponized nightmare fuel. I reached into my equipment harness and pulled out my backup weapon, a neural disruptor. Top of the line. It sent out electromagnetic pulses tuned to scramble the synaptic pathways of most carbon-based life forms. Instant unconsciousness, followed by brain death within 30 seconds. I pointed it at Iris. She looked at it, looked at me, and her expression shifted into something that I can only describe as pity. Actual pity. Like I was a small child who had just proposed solving a complex mathematical equation by hitting it with a rock. That is a neural disruptor, she said gently. Yes, you know human brains are shielded by a solid bone structure called a skull, right? It is about 6.5 millimeters thick on average, and our neurons fire using both electrical and chemical signals, which makes us really resistant to electromagnetic interference. I fired it anyway. The pulse hit her square in the forehead. She blinked, twice, then she reached up and rubbed the spot. Okay, that tickled a little bit. Kind of tingly. Did you feel that? She turned to Marcus.
Feel what?
Vexer just shot me with a neural disruptor.
Oh yeah? Anything happen?
Not really. Little bit of a headache maybe. Quinn laughed. Actually laughed. Like this was the most entertaining thing she had seen all week. Dude, you should try the Sonic Devastator next. Those are always hilarious. I do not have a sonic devastator, I said, my voice completely hollow. Shame, she said. Those just make us nauseous for a bit. Sometimes we throw up. But like we throw up when we drink too much alcohol anyway, so it is not even that weird. I cycled through my remaining options. Toxin injector? Iris had already explained their ridiculous immune systems. Thermal grenades? Marcus had mentioned something about surviving in temperature extremes that should have been physically impossible. Kinetic weapons? I looked at Quinn, who was casually eating what appeared to be a sandwich containing actual fire, and decided that bullets probably were not going to cut it either. You are running out of options, are you not? Iris asked, and there was actual sympathy in her voice now, like she felt bad for me, the assassin, who had come here to kill her. This is humiliating, I admitted. Yeah, I can see that. She pulled out her communicator. Hey, I'm gonna order some food from the cafeteria. Do you guys want anything? Ooh, see if they have that spicy noodle thing again, Marcus said. The one that put Krevin in medical for 3 days? Quinn asked. That is the one. I will take 2 orders. They were ordering lunch. I was having a complete professional meltdown. My entire worldview was crumbling around me like a structure made of wet sand, and they were ordering lunch. Do you want anything, Vexar? Iris asked politely. I want to understand how your species has not been completely eradicated from the galaxy out of sheer self-preservation instinct from every other sentient race. That is not on the menu, she said, but I can get you some water, the non-oxygenated kind. Probably safer for you. Marcus grinned at me. First time dealing with humans? Yes. Yeah, you get used to it. Or you do not. Most people do not. The humiliation was complete. Absolute. Total. I had been reduced from a feared assassin to a confused alien being offered sympathy water by his intended target. I accepted the water. It felt like the only reasonable thing to do at this point. Iris sat down across from me, her food order apparently placed, and she had that look that teachers get when they are about to explain something they find personally fascinating. So you want to know why we are like this, she said. It was not a question. I want to know why evolution did not simply give up on your entire species as a failed experiment. She laughed at that, a genuine sound of amusement. Okay, fair question. Here is the thing about evolution. It does not care about making things easy. It cares about making things that survive long enough to reproduce. And Earth, horrible nightmare Deathworld that it is, has been running the most intense survival course in this section of the galaxy for about 4 billion years. Quinn pulled up a chair, apparently deciding this was worth paying attention to. Marcus kept eating his chemical weapon sandwich but was clearly listening. Life on Earth has been nearly wiped out 5 times, Iris continued. Complete mass extinction events, asteroid impacts, volcanic eruptions, climate shifts that killed off 90% of all species. And every single time something survived, something adapted, something looked at the apocalypse and said, well, this is inconvenient, and then just kept going. That is not adaptation. That is stubborn refusal to accept reality. Yes, she agreed enthusiastically. Exactly. That is humans in a nutshell. We are the descendants of organisms that were too stubborn to die. Everything on Earth is. You know what the most successful organisms on our planet are. Bacteria. Microscopic. Simple. Impossible to kill. They live in boiling water. They live in solid ice. They live in acid. They live in nuclear waste. They look at conditions that should be completely incompatible with life and go, yeah, okay. I can work with this. Marcus swallowed a bite of his lunch. Humans climbed out of the ocean about 375 million years ago. Well, our ancestors did. Fish with legs. And the land was worse than the ocean. Less food. More predators. Temperatures that swung wildly. And you had to figure out how to breathe air instead of water. Most things would have just stayed in the ocean. But something did not, I said slowly, beginning to see the pattern. Something did not, Iris confirmed. And then we had to survive the dinosaurs, which were basically enormous murder machines that dominated the planet for about 165 million years. Mammals, our ancestors, were tiny. We lived in burrows. We came out at night. We ate scraps. We were prey for literally everything. But we survived. And then the asteroid hit, Twin added. Big one, about 66 million years ago. Killed off the dinosaurs and about 75% of all plant and animal species. Global firestorms. Years of darkness. Temperatures dropped catastrophically. Food chains collapsed. But mammals survived. We survived because we were small, adaptable, and too stubborn to quit. So we inherited a planet that was actively hostile, Iris said. And we just kept adapting. We learned to use tools. We learned to control fire, which, by the way, most species are terrified of fire. We looked at it and thought, hey, what if we could use this incredibly destructive force for cooking and heating? We spread to every continent, every climate zone, every hostile environment we could find. Deserts, tundras, mountains, jungles. If it existed, we moved there, because apparently we enjoy a challenge. But why are you so cheerful about it? I asked. Because this was the part that truly baffled me. You live on a planet that is constantly trying to kill you. You have diseases, predators, natural disasters, toxic food, and apparently you just accept this as normal. How are you not all suffering from permanent psychological trauma? The three humans exchanged glances, and something passed between them. Some shared understanding that I was not part of, because if we were not cheerful about it, we would go insane. Eris said quietly. Humans developed something called humor as a coping mechanism. When things are terrible, and they often are, we make jokes. We laugh, we find the absurdity in our situation, and we embrace it, because the alternative is despair, and despair does not help you survive. We are optimists by necessity, Marcus added. You have to believe things will get better, even when all evidence suggests otherwise. You have to keep trying, keep adapting, keep moving forward, because that is what we have always done. That is what we are built for. Quinn grinned. Plus, if you can survive Earth, everything else is easy mode. That is why humans are so relaxed out here in the galaxy. You think your plasma disruptor is scary? We have survived worse before breakfast. I stared at them, these bizarre, indestructible, cheerful creatures from a nightmare world, and I finally understood. They were not the exception. They were the rule. Earth had spent billions of years creating the perfect survivors, and then those survivors had developed the psychological tools to stay sane while doing it. They were not just physically resistant, they were mentally unbreakable. Absolutely terrifying. Iris stood up and walked over to a small appliance in the corner of the lab. It hissed and gurgled like it was dying a slow, painful death. She pulled out a cup, filled with dark liquid that smelled like burnt organic compounds mixed with bitterness and regret.
Coffee,
she offered, holding the cup out to me. I recoiled so fast I nearly fell out of my chair. That is a Class 4 toxin. The caffeine alone would shut down my respiratory system. The acidity would perforate my digestive tract, and whatever those aromatic compounds are, they would probably cause neural hemorrhaging. Right, sorry, forgot, she said, not looking sorry at all. She took a sip herself and made a satisfied sound. We drink this to wake up in the morning, sometimes 3 or 4 cups a day. You poison yourselves recreationally. I mean, when you put it like that, it sounds bad, Quinn said. Iris set down her toxic beverage and leaned against the workstation, her posture completely relaxed. So, here is a thought. Instead of you trying to kill me with weapons that clearly are not going to work, and me having to continue explaining basic human biology, why do we not just talk? You know, like reasonable beings. Talk, I repeated. Yeah, talk, communication, exchange of information. I am assuming someone paid you to come here. Someone with a vested interest in me not revealing whatever it is they think I know. Maybe we can work something out that does not involve repeated assassination attempts. Marcus nodded. Makes sense to me. Fighting is exhausting. And honestly, you seem like you are having a rough day already. A rough day, I said. I am having a complete existential crisis. My entire professional identity has been shattered. Everything I thought I knew about threat assessment has been revealed as laughably inadequate. And you are worried about me having a rough day. See, that is exactly why we should talk, Iris said. Get it all out. Process the trauma. We are very good at therapy. We invented like 40 different kinds of therapy because we need them. Quinn pulled out additional chairs, arranging them in a circle like this was some kind of support group meeting. Come on, sit. Tell us who hired you. Maybe we can sort this whole thing out without anyone getting hurt. Well, more accurately, without you continuing to hurt your own pride by failing to hurt us. This was insane. This entire situation had crossed so far beyond the boundaries of normal professional conduct that I could not even see those boundaries anymore. They were a distant memory, a fading dream of a simpler time when assassination contracts followed logical patterns. And yet, I sat down. Because what else was I going to do? Continue trying to eliminate an unkillable target with inadequate weapons? My handlers had not prepared me for this scenario. There was no protocol for what to do when your target offers you a therapy session after you fail to murder them. This is the strangest day of my life, I said. Stick around, Marcus said cheerfully. It gets weirder. I sent my report 3 hours later, after what could only be described as the most surreal conversation of my entire existence. The humans had helped me draft it, actually, because apparently they found the whole situation hilarious, and wanted to make sure I got the wording right. The message was simple: contract terminated, target is unkillable, recommend immediate cessation of all hostile actions against human species. Further attempts will result in professional embarrassment at best, complete operational failure at worst. My handler's response came back within minutes. It was a single word: explain. So I did. I explained the plasma disruptor failure, the neural disruptor failure, the casual consumption of toxins, the stories about Earth, the complete lack of fear, the offer of coffee that would have killed me. All of it. There was a long pause. Then, are you compromised? No, I sent back. I am educated. There is a difference. Another pause. Then, this information is consistent with other field reports we have been receiving. Recommendation accepted. Contract cancelled. Return to base. I looked at Iris, who was back at her workstation analyzing her samples like nothing unusual had happened today. My employers have agreed to leave you alone. Cool, she said without looking up. Tell them if they need any xenobiological consulting in the future, I do freelance work. Reasonable rates. You want them to hire you? They just tried to kill you. Yeah, but they are not going to try again, right? And I need funding for my research. Might as well get it from people with deep pockets and poor judgment. Marcus handed me a data chip. Here, educational materials about humans. Share it with your employer. Share it with anyone who might be considering aggressive action against Earth or human colonies. Consider it a public service. I took the chip. What is on it? Compilation of human survival stories, biological data, cultural information, and a very comprehensive list of things that have failed to kill us over the years. It is a long list. Quinn walked me to the door. No hard feelings, right? You were just doing your job. We get it. No hard feelings, I agreed, still processing everything. Oh, and Vexor. Iris called out as I was leaving. If you ever want to visit Earth, let me know. I will show you around. Fair warning though, you will need about 17 different vaccinations first, and you probably should not touch anything. I left the station in a daze. 3 weeks later, the galactic network was buzzing with a new piece of common wisdom that spread like wildfire through every mercenary guild, every military organization, every criminal syndicate. Do not mess with the humans. Not because they are aggressive, not because they are technologically superior, not because they are politically powerful, but because they are from Earth, and Earth does not raise victims. It raises survivors, and survivors do not scare easily. I never took another contract against a human. Neither did anyone else I knew. Some lessons you only need to learn once.